Okay, well, I'd like to welcome everyone here to the second episode of Face-to-Face. Last week we had Jason Lucas, the co-founder of Orig Audio. I want to remind everyone, of course, that those presentations are archived on our YouTube channel as well as on a website. We try to send that information out to you as often as we can so you know where we're at. Today I'd like to welcome Randy Kessler. Randy, I think, is working out of his home office. You can probably tell by what's behind him that he's into books. Works for Scholastic Inc., has been in the book industry, primarily kids' books, has some great stories about Barney from a previous employer. And we're going to turn this time over to Randy. Feel free to ask questions via the chat group on the left of your screen at any time, and Randy will respond when he can. He's going to share, in a moment, he's going to share his screen top, just some screen sharing, and we'll see his PowerPoint that he's going to use and walk us through and tell us some interesting information. So, Randy, it's all yours.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jeff. First off, it's really a pleasure to be talking with all of you. And I like to say it was 24 years ago that I was sitting in your chair and listening to Mr. Macaulay. It's always hard to say Jeff, so he'll always be Mr. Macaulay to me. But time goes fast, and I can remember as I sat out there and I wondered what this guy is saying or what he's teaching. Will I take it and go forward with it? And I can honestly say that class there, as I sat in it, and 24 years later, that was really the start of where I've ended up here. So with that said, I want to jump in real quick because I got a quick presentation here of the children's book industry. I've been in the book industry for about 20 years now. I always like to say I started when I was 10, but that's not the case. But anyway, I'm going to go to the screen share here and jump right into the presentation, and we'll take a look here at screen share. Did that work?
Not yet. It hasn't popped up yet. There's usually a little bit of a lag time, so we'll cross our fingers. Just so you know, we did test this all out at about 6:30 this morning, and everything eventually was working just fine. So if not, we want it to work because we don't want to have to stare at Randy this whole time while he talks to us. But we'll see if that deck comes up or not.
Yeah.
If it's not, you might just have to go from your screen and talk to us about it. You know, technology's great, but when it works.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let me jump to. Hopefully it'll pop up here in a second.
Okay. There we go.
Excellent. All right. Internet's working. Super. The one thing is, you know, I had this great plan to do the slideshow and everything, and as Jeff and I worked on this morning, we found the slideshow part doesn't work. So unfortunately, you have to look at the full screen. But with that said, just want to jump in real quick. Basically, what I want to show you guys today is kind of a look at the children's publishing industry from a sales eye. I think if you'd ask a person editorial, they'd give you kind of a different perspective because they kind of have a different function. But this is really coming from sales, and when you're in sales, you touch just about every facet of the company. So this is kind of my look, and some of the initial slides you're going to kind of say, wow, this is kind of boring, and who is this guy, and why is he showing me this stuff? But it's going to actually build. So this presentation is going to build as we move forward. So I just want to give you that information before we get started, and we'll start off. The first slide, I just kind of want to build in terms of who the children's publishers are, or who the players are. Now I've had the privilege of working for a couple different publishers. I've now been at Scholastic a little over 9 years now. So I kind of want to give you an idea as we look at this in terms of the publishers, who are the players in the industry, and really starting with Random House, they're at the top. And as I go through this list real quick, you're probably going to recognize several of these publishers from their adult. We always call them their adult big brothers because the adults publishers always have the dollars, and they carry the big name titles. So as we look, I kind of listed the top 10 there, but in essence, what I want to really communicate through this slide is how competitive of an industry it is. So you have kind of your top 10 players up on top there, but as you look, I noted there's at least 75 more players, and quite frankly, there could actually be even more than that. It's a very, very competitive industry, and some of these companies are just really very small. 2, 3, 4 people in their companies to I know my company, Scholastic, we have about 9,000 employees, so worldwide. So kind of gives you an idea where we're at in terms of who's playing in the industry. Like I said, we're going to build as we go forward. I'm going to switch real quick to the next slide, and I'm going to kind of give you some of the terminology that's used in the industry and give you an idea, really, in essence, really from a marketing perspective. So as I recall back to Jeff's class, I always remember the 4 Ps, and some people I know when I was in college used 5 Ps and all that, but I think in essence we always start with product in publishing, because if we don't have product, I in essence don't have a job. So it's kind of important to me. So as I look at product in terms of the terminology we use, and in essence you have two different terms that are used for product. One of them being a publisher's backlist. So a backlist title is in essence things that they've previously published, things that you can consider things that are in their library already. And front list basically is all the new titles, anything that we're publishing that's brand new. And one of the notes that I found here that it's always interesting in terms of the backlist, the importance of it is the backlist is the financial backbone of the book industry, and in essence, those backlist titles account for 25 to 30% of a publisher's sales, so they're really important. Another key term beyond just backlist and front list and what those are is it's a real important term in the industry is returnability, and as we go throughout these slides, I'm going to get into a little bit more of sales terms in terms of when I actually go out and sell to a distributor or a retailer. But in essence, returnability is a term in the book industry where basically, in essence, any title that we put out at retail, for a majority of the customers, their term is they can return it. So kind of creates a real risk in there. You don't want to sell a lot of product in if you don't think you're going to sell a lot of product through, because you're going to get that product back. So returnability actually is one of the key terms in the publishing industry. I know industries such as the toy industry works off markdown dollars, and a lot of times you'll see markdowns used in like clearance sales or red tag end caps and things like that. Unfortunately, most of the retailers are not markdown type customers. They all want returnability. So that's one. So as I look at that, and you're probably scratching your head going, well, how do we ever get any books in this industry? Why doesn't a publisher just stick with their backlist? Well, if we stuck with our backlist, the industry would be really pretty boring. So as we look, our publisher is really adverse to creating front list titles. And as you see on this slide, absolutely not. When I looked up, and this number always kind of is a little scary to me in terms of how, in essence, the industry is competitive. In the most recent Library and Book Trade Almanac, there were over 25,000 new books published in total, looking at either kids or young adults. And with kids, I kind of defined it on this slide, grades pre-K through 6, and then young adult defined as grades 7 through 12. So it kind of gives you an idea down at the bottom there. I have what's the kids book, and I have a young adult book that's near and dear to me since I sell that book, Hunger Games, is young adult. So kind of gives you an idea. And you'll see in this presentation, I try to peel it back, almost like peeling an onion, if you will. So we're going to jump into, okay, now we know backlist, front list, things like that. We're going to go in this presentation, we're going to look purely at kids product. If I wanted to go into young adult and kids, we'd probably be here most of the day. And I know you guys have other things to do besides listen to me. So I want to give you an idea specifically looking at children's product. And again, as we look back to that previous slide, children's product is in essence grades pre-K through 6. So you're looking at anything from baby through grade 6. So as we look at that product, there's really in essence two different segments that we look at. We look at non-licensed books, and basically those are books that are written by an author who gets paid for their work, but the book is really not known beyond the book itself. And then the other segment of the business beside non-licensed books is licensed books. Licensed books are anything that's tied into a toy, movie, TV show, computer game. I give an example on the slide here of Lego. So basically, Lego grants permission to a publisher who, Lego is the licensor, and grants permission to a publisher who becomes the licensee to copy and distribute their copyrighted work, which Lego provides in a style guide. So in essence, they're given permission to use their intellectual property in a format that's different from what they actually create themselves. So as you look down towards the bottom, I kind of just give a real brief look at, what's the definition between a non-licensed book with some examples and a licensed book. And the one thing you'll see is really for an author, in most cases, a lot of them, their dream is to get into a license, because with a license they can see their property really mature into other products besides a book. So the example I use here is Eric Carle, and I know from my own perspective, this week we celebrated Clifford's 50th birthday. So when we look back, that Clifford's been around 50 years. I'm sure Norman Bridwell back in 1962, who's the author of Clifford, probably didn't look and say, someday I'm going to have a TV show and I'm going to have, little Clifford plush and things like that. But over time, it's matured into something bigger and bolder. So as you look at licensed books, I gave you some examples. We have everything from Sesame Street to Disney to Star Wars, Disney Princess, and things like that. So as we kind of move on, I got to stick with my P's here, and I look at price. And I could probably spend another hour just talking about, how do we determine the price and what goes into determining the price of a book and things like that. And really, we work off, profit and loss statements, our P&Ls, and really that's developed through conjunction with editorial, sales, marketing, operations. In essence, anywhere where you have costs involved, you have to build that cost into your profit and loss. So you can really, in essence, develop an expectation of what you expect from a certain title when you're pricing the book. So when we're actually setting the product cost in terms of going to a retailer or distributor, it does differ by channel. Obviously, a distributor, you're going to want to give them a little bit better price because they have to pay for the distribution into the retailer, as well as the other thing we consider when developing the product cost to a retailer or distributors, things such as freight costs. And probably the easiest thing is to look down at the bottom of my slide here. I actually pulled a term, discount terms from one of my competitors, Random House, and as you see, certain formats have different discounts. So, for example, if you're selling and level 2 readers to a major distributor, they're going to get a 55% discount off that book. So if that book's $3.99, in essence, that book is going to cost the distributor $1.79. And from there, it kind of goes broken out by segment, as you see. And all publishers have very similar type discount term structures, which this is. Some are more difficult than others because, in essence, as the publisher, you can kind of set the terms however you need to see fit. So kind of gives you an idea on the pricing and how that's established. Jumping in real quick into where I'm headed with this presentation, I'm going to concentrate really on the mass merchandise stores in the United States. As you look down below, that's going to kind of give you a pretty good idea of stores that we've all shopped at, know about, and things like that. Some of them are regional, as you'll see below. Some of them are national, and some of them you've heard of, probably some of them you haven't heard of. But in essence, it's in the mass, we go anywhere from grocery, which, as you see, the Kroger listed, to Walmart, to APHIS, which those stores are on military bases, And then we jump into Hudson and Parity shops, which you'll find in most cases basically at airports stores. So getting books out into a lot of locations is in essence through book distributors. And a lot of people say, well, why don't retailers go direct? And a lot is based on their cost and time. With a retailer and a buyer, in most cases, most buyers are responsible for other categories beyond books. So they rely a lot on the distributors for their expertise on the book market, as well as just purely looking at, a retailer looks purely at saving money. I mean, if we go back to that first slide, and as you look, and I had the top 10 publishers listed, and then I had at least 75 more that are part of the industry. A retailer doesn't want to be, just inundating their accounting and billing departments with 85 different vendors. For some cases, a publisher may have 3 books in their store to a publisher may have 50 books in their stores. So it really saves them time and money as a company, and it saves the buyer a lot of time, just in essence having the benefit of someone else looking over their category for them. So essence, that's really what this presentation is. We're going to look at what we call the non-traditional bookseller retailers, and we're going to see how they get books into their stores. So as you recall, walking into a store, and I don't know how many of you actually get into the book departments, but there's what I call, there is a method to the madness. As you look at the book department, you're going to see what we call the planograms, and planograms kind of it's an industry term for books in the mass channel, but it's really a term for most consumer products, whether you're in the toy department or in the soda department or in the cereal department. In essence, retailers work off planograms, or what we call POGs. They work in essence to really develop a look, or what I call the method to the madness of their departments, so that basically in the end they are putting out the best product available and utilizing the most, basically utilizing all the space that buyer has available to them. So in essence, that's kind of the planogram is really in essence a model that they put together. So when someone goes in to service their stores, or what we call the merchandiser, when they go in to service their stores, they can look and see what the planogram should look like, or what the store should look like for that section. The other way we get books in is promotional, and promotional placement usually is up for a short time. In essence, it's usually titles they expect a very quick turn of the inventory on. There's usually a movie moment tied to it, or some type of value price. Maybe it's a buy two get one free, or a 25% off value to the books. Or another way we get it in is through a new series, bringing something new to the department. One of the things you'll see as we develop into the marketing part of this presentation is we want to keep the departments looking fresh, because nothing's worse than going into a store all the time and it looking pretty old and boring. So we always try to bring something new into the stores. So the planogram. So as I mentioned, each retailer that we'll discuss in this presentation has its own unique children's book planogram. You'll see that the racking in the stores is a lot different. So when the racking's different, obviously the planogram's going to be different. And the other really interesting part of this is you may shop at one Walmart store and look at the book department, and drive down the street to another Walmart store, and the department may look completely different. And a lot of that is based on the retailer, the square footage of the overall store. So they kind of line up the stores. They have their A stores, B stores, and C stores. And A stores are obviously their largest stores, and B stores are a little bit not as large, and the C stores are even smaller than the B stores. So as the overall store square footage shrinks, obviously each department is a little bit smaller. So you're going to see as we go along, and when we get into my pictures, that the retailers do have their own look, and they like that actually. They want to be different than everybody else in a lot of cases. Planograms usually change out twice a year, and that's usually pretty standard. I know from working on the toy side of the business, that's kind of standard. And we'll get into the timeline and as well as, in essence, how titles are selected for the planogram. Because in essence, as I kind of defined as a publisher, would I rather have my title in a planogram or would I rather have my title in a promotion? I mean, that's a question I sometimes get. And for me, it's all about the planogram, because a planogram only gets changed out twice a year. And with it being changed out twice a year, that means my title is going to be up for a minimum of 6 months, which is great. Now, promotionally, as I mentioned, that can be kind of quick. It can be up a month and brought back. I mean, whatever doesn't sell, like I said, is returnable. So you really look at the analysis of stuff, and that's kind of where I'm leading us into here with this next slide. Is we have a saying, at least in our sales force here, is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So when I look at these slides, and I'll tell you, I was never a math major in school, and I was never an IT person, as Jeff can attest to this morning, as we could have used some AV help, or at least I could have used some AV help on my side, or some IT help. But in essence, in analytics, I can't stress enough how important it is in really a successful salesperson. I think most people look at salespeople as, I'm always out in front of a customer and I'm always selling stuff, which I have to tell you, that's what I love the best. I love being out in front of the customer. I enjoy it. I think it's great. I love working to find a way to get my product sold in. But there's so much involved with sales in terms of making sure you do your homework. And the analytics is such a key part, because the retailers have their own systems. And the one thing I can't stress enough is really digging in and having to learn those systems. So as I look at planogram facings, a retailer, whenever I meet with them, they're always going to have what we call their POS, or point of sales information. Basically, they're going to look at how many units they've sold for a specific time period, or how many dollars they generated out of my space I have on the planogram, or in essence, over a period of time, really what's the sales in terms of dollars, and how many turns of the inventory happened, or how many units turned for a specific amount of time. So as we look at in essence, the systems, Walmart has their own system called Retail Link, and Target has their own system called Partners Online. I have a distributor here in Chicago that they have their own inventory system, which is really fantastic for me, because their system, in essence, all their retailers that they distribute to, and they distribute to a number of the mass ones that we're looking at here, all the POS and inventory feeds into their system. So I can go really, in essence, one-stop shopping, look in their system, and then kind of drill down to a Meyer store, or a Fred Meyer store, or a Shopko, and see really, in essence, what's sold. As we go and look at the planogram changeouts, I mentioned they're twice a year, and really this slide is key. I can't stress enough the analytics of stuff. And really the other part of the analytics is it really helps me, because internally I have to have my own internal forecast. The one thing, as we'll see, and we'll go to the pictures real quick, and I'll talk a little bit more about the analytics, is in essence, when I'm using the analytics internally, is I have to make sure I'm forecasting my usage of these titles. I mean, nothing is more upsetting to a retailer is going in and looking at their planograms as they're set and seeing empty holes. So as you look here, I mean, most of these pictures are pretty good. You look the picture to the left first. In essence, this is a planogram. This is at Toys R Us. And they do a lot of brand blocking. So with brand blocking, you're going to look, and it's going to show you they've kind of put all the Lego books together. And the other thing they've done is they've kind of put the Star Wars books together, and the Thomas the Tank, and if you look above, there's cars. Then the planogram to the right is actually a Meyer store, and Meyer's a chain out it's based in Michigan. and it's about 200 stores. They're in Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, Illinois, and we're going to soon be getting some here in Wisconsin. But the big thing with this one I want to illustrate for this picture on the right-hand side is you're going to see some empty space towards the top there. Nothing is more maddening to a retailer than seeing empty holes in their planogram, and a lot could be, in essence, maybe the book sold out. It outperformed the forecast, or for a publisher, when I go in and see this, I go in and look at it and I go, well, I think it could be that the publisher's out of stock and they're not fulfilling their planogram space. And when that happens, I'll oftentimes try to sell against that and try to get that real estate if it's not mine. So kind of gives you an idea there. Next up we have, this is another planogram shot. The one on the left is actually something new that we're looking at, a Walmart store here. And again, you're going to see the importance of the signage and communicating. Real easy for a parent or grandparent, because in essence that's who's buying these books, besides the little kids that are with them, is really developing. You can go right there and you'll know right away what type of books are in that section. So with this one, you'll see it's very pink. The signage is new, and that's a new initiative they're working on. And then the one on the right, you're going to see that's a Target store. And Target, you'll see different racking. So as you look, Target has what we call the waterfall, and you'll see that demonstrated up towards the top, those top shelves. We call it waterfall racking in essence because it kind of flows like a waterfall. If you look at it, you want to put the bigger books in the back so they kind of can be seen from the back, and the smaller books in terms of height move to the front. But again, the signage, and you can see on the signage they use very recognizable characters. So as you're competing in the store to get a consumer's attention, and in the mass, when we look at this stuff, we often call it the 3-second rule. We basically, on studies, have shown that in most cases parents or grandparents will walk past an item and give it a 3-second or less look. So you really want to grab their attention fairly quick.
Randy?
Yes.
Let me jump in just for a second and remind you, over on the left of your screen there, our listeners are encouraged to post questions. And I know Nat snuck one up there, and it's your call if you want to answer them as you go along or if there's something you're going to get to, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew they were there and that our other people that are watching understand they can add them too. If all of them will look at the top left of their screen, there's a chat button that'll open up a chat window so you can roll from there. So I apologize for interrupting. Just want to make sure everybody was aware.
Okay. Nat, okay. How do you decide what titles to place? Has your company ever passed on a title that hit big by another publisher? Good questions. How do they decide what titles to place? We're going to actually see that coming in the presentation, so we'll answer that question. And then, has your company ever passed on a title that hit big by another publisher? Yes. I think there's not a publisher out there that has lived on both sides of that fence. The one side of the fence being, in essence, the side of the fence where you say, wow, we really missed on that one, but there's another one that says, wow, I wish we really didn't have this title because we just got hit in our warehouse with a bunch of returns coming back from the retailer. So that's where, in essence, you really, as I look at it, a real successful publisher, it doesn't always come down to just editorial making decisions. The book industry is based in New York City, in essence. They're publishers, in various parts of the country, but more or less all the big publishers have a New York presence. And I oftentimes joke internally and say, these editors, they have to realize there is a world across the Hudson River that's called, the mainland USA. And a lot of times you have to consider what's outselling in the United States beyond New York City. So we've definitely had some hits and some misses. I'd like to say we've had a lot more hits than misses, but it's definitely challenging as you're looking at upfront, what agents are looking at in terms of the dollars up front, and then what you think your expectations are going to be and what you're actually going to sell. So we'll see as we go forward. The other thing, and I'll jump back, and Jeff, we're okay on the slides again, I think. Okay.
Yeah, we're good to go. You might try. I know it didn't work this morning, but you might try on the bottom right-hand side to click that little plus button up. It might give you a little bit larger view. Maybe it will work now. I know we had some issues earlier.
Yeah.
Otherwise, don't sweat it.
Okay. All right. Again, this is just some pictures. Again, the unfortunate thing, what I'd love to do would have been to take the entire class or all the classes out to the stores so we could actually see this. So, with these pictures, I'm trying to bring, in essence, the stores to us here online. But as I reflect back, and the one thing I forgot to mention when I started these pictures is really how I started the presentation, in essence. The one thing, and Jeff and I joked about this morning, is management by walking around. And that was a term I had never heard of when I was a junior in high school. And I can remember Jeff playing the old Tom Peters. Yes, I'm really going to age myself now, Jeff. Cassettes. Jeff had cassettes, if you can believe that. I know he's gone high tech on us now, but the one thing I always took away from that was with Sam Walton always mentioned management by walking around. And that is, in essence, one of the important things that I do is in terms of visiting these stores. We often try to get out in the stores as much as possible just to see what is going on in the stores, and really you can see what's selling, what's not selling, what the retailer's strategy is on certain things, and things like that. So, in essence, really wanted to take that into consideration as we're going through this too, is management by walking around. So the other thing I kind of mentioned here is beyond the planogram is promotional placement. And most promotional placements driven by value offers or a movie tie-in or a seasonal tie-in or something like that. I mean, most promotional placement, I know when we had Hunger Games, for example, we had some terrific type placement when the movie came out. So that's one of the ways you can tie in. And as we'll get into some of the pictures here, we'll see some seasonal tie-ins as well as just purely new release tie-ins or some value offers. Can't stress enough in terms of when I go out and commit to a promotion, and my promotions usually paid through placement is paid through co-op, and the co-op budget for a retailer is based on their prior year sales. So in essence, when you're looking at a Target store, you're going to see a Target store, and every year, basically, in essence, you're going to have a co-op budget that's going to be based on their prior year sales, and the percentage is of co-op, or the budget you have for their co-op is a percentage of their prior year sales. So every publisher works a little differently. Some publishers are 2% of their prior year net sales. I want to make sure we stress net, because again, we really in publishing work on gross sales minus returns give you net sales. So we work on a percentage of net sales of their prior year. So basically, as you go into 2012, which we're in right now, we've had a budget of 2012 co-op is based on their 2011 % of sales. So that basically pays for the promotional placement, which includes corrugate display placement or end caps, main aisle fixtures, and outer department tie-ins, which we're going to actually see some pictures as we go forward here. One of the things we've worked on, and as we jump in, as we battle the Amazon.coms online and the Barnes and Nobles, and in essence, basically all the traditional booksellers, we've really been working with our distributors as a really publishing community, if you will. I know it's kind of weird to say we actually come together, competitors, all of us kind of work to really develop programs through our distributors and our retailers, but in essence, we try to, because we know we're competing against, stores where, as you go shopping, you go to Barnes & Noble. You're going to Barnes & Noble either for your coffee, or you're going to buy a magazine, a newspaper, or a book, in most cases. So we know that Barnes & Noble is a destination spot for books, in essence. We also recognize that when you're going to a Walmart, a Target, a Fred Meyer, something like that, we recognize, look, you're not going into those stores necessarily all the time to buy a book. So with this shopper marketing, as we look at research and stuff, we really try to develop some marketing specifically aimed at those customers that are in those stores. So how can we really, in essence, we work to build book departments and product awareness? It was kind of interesting. One of the distributors did some analysis, and they did real simple surveys in the stores, and the surveys were really eye-opening. As people were leaving the store, they did these surveys, and they went through all the different demographic and market research standard questions. But one of the questions they asked was the person leaving the store aware that there was a book department in that store? And this was done with a major retailer in the United States. And the research came back, and the eye-opening part of that research, it was 1 in 100. So in essence, 1 in 100 of those people, as they were leaving the store, even knew there was a book department in that store. So that was really eye-opening. And our thought was always, well, our goal should be to get 2 in 100. If we can get one more person, in essence, to look and realize there are books in that store, we can actually, hopefully, maybe double our sales. Who knows? So that's, in essence, what we try to do with this shopper marketing, is really take the research we've gathered, try to find a way to really remind the shopper that there is books in the store, try to find out through the research what influences the consumer to be in the store to buy books, and then to look at ways that we can actually convert them into being book shoppers at this retailer. I'm going to jump real quick into some of the value and the signage and how we do some promotions in the stores. We look at, looking back, as I talked a little bit about that 3-second rule, you have everything from simple signage, calling out the value, 25, in essence, this was a 25% off of some Disney books, to 25% off. It's a little bit fancier signage of Dora book. And then if you look over to the right-hand side, this is what we call the shelf talker. And in essence, this isn't really value signage, but it really further is trying to sell that consumer on that particular title. So that's another term we have, is shelf talkers. And then we get into a little bit bigger and bold promotions. And in essence, what these are called half pallets. They usually get amazing placement on a racetrack. And in essence, the racetrack is really the main aisle of the store. So with that, is a lot of these racetracks placements is absolutely amazing, because the number of footsteps you get that walk past this display is, in essence, 10 or 20 fold than what could be actually shopping in the book department. So with that, in this particular one, and this was done from Simon & Schuster, big and bold. They call out the value on it. They get some nice graphics there. And then the one on the right, they actually developed this corrugate, in essence, really to sell this particular format. These are the one on the right's these big, what we call the ginormous color activity books. And again, they're really trying to create a big picture so it can't be missed. And these are actually, you can't really see it, but these are actually value priced too. Then we'll go in real quick. This is some of the seasonal placement, and this is in essence a 4-sided palette. I only have 2 sides pictured here, but it kind of really looks at some of the promotions seasonally. And this particular one is Christmas, and you can kind of see some of the books are falling down there, which is one of the reasons sometimes the corrugate doesn't work. But the thing to keep in mind is, as a publisher, is you've helped pay for this corrugate. So keep that in mind as we go forward. Real clean. Next slides are really clean in terms of the end caps, and that's what these are. These are end caps. Really, again, look down on that left-hand side. You're going to see an empty hole there. That drives retailers crazy, especially on seasonal promotions, because in essence, you know, somebody's paid for that placement. The retailer said, okay, you're going to have the books for that placement. The publisher's going to say, sure, I have the books for placement on that. And as they go in the stores, they're going to see empty holes. The buyers are not happy to see that. Another one, this is back-to-school promotions. Again, you can actually see some empty holes off this promotion, and that, in essence, is actually books that are selling. This must have been towards the end of the promotion, because you can kind of see how, to justify keeping that pallet still up, they actually took, the merchandiser took the books and made it look full. So on the one on the left-hand side, as you can kind of see the Dora books lined up there. The other thing seasonally we look at is trying to get out of the book department over right into the seasonal aisle. So as we jump to the next slide, you'll see that's Valentine's product on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, this is Chuggington. And we've gone into the toy department, and we actually have counter displays, and we really, in essence, are trying to develop synergies with the toys and in selling the books. So you kind of have a really nice brand block there with both the Chuggington toys, the Chuggington books, and then to the right here you have the Chuggington DVDs as well as backpacks there. So really developing a strong license statement and really going after those fans. The next one is really, in essence, DVDs, and of course everyone who has Netflix and all that realizes DVDs aren't what they used to be, and in essence what this buyer has done is he's been able to get books placed over in the entertainment department, or the DVD department, which is unique. Most buyers are very territorial. They do not like giving up their space to other product that they don't sell. So that's a big one there. And the other one is the next up we call the parasite rack. I call it the money rack for me. The toy people would call it a parasite rack. In essence, what this is I have books placed on a wire fixture hanging off the toy rack. And in essence, again, what I'm trying to do is get our books over and grab that Star Wars fan who's over shopping in the toy department. As we go forward, and some of the things we look at from the shopper's marketing is really trying to get books involved into the bigger features of the stores. What this slide is it's a Star Wars feature shop. So Star Wars, George Lucas company has a huge promotion going on, and what they call their feature shop, and this is at a Toys R Us. So when every Toys R Us you walk into, and you walk up front, is really what they call their feature shop, and that's usually up for 4 weeks out of the year, and it's usually tied around something big. So with this Star Wars one, I believe it's when the last Star Wars movie came out in 3D, and Lucas basically was able to secure placement and make a real strong license statement for all their products, and books, in essence, was one of those products where we actually have the counter tray, which is the picture to the right there. Again, really what we call the Cadillac or the Lexus of all promotions and books is driven by the Dr. Seuss Read Across America. And what I've done here is I've taken the Myers store, and just all the retailers that I've talked about all have a Dr. Seuss Read Across America promotion. Most of them will only do a value promotion with the Dr. Seuss books. But what this chain did is they developed into an event, and anybody who's thought about going to an event at a mass channel retail stores, it's in essence, it's a real challenge, because most people are going there again because they want to go there and they want to buy their toothpaste, or they want to go there and buy some clothes or something like that. So to develop an event is significant. But what they've done with this is they've developed an event in the store. So basically they were celebrating Dr. Seuss month. So that's the signage they're doing. They tied other, and you can't see it very well probably on the screen, but they developed tied in other products to this promotion. They got great promotion on the books themselves in the main aisle. And then this chart over on the right-hand side here is, in essence, a copy of their circular. So what did that do for that particular chain, that event, for that week? It increased their sales by almost 40%. So that is what we'd call a real strong win in generating dollars. Some of the more, and this slide is jumping into real circular promotional advertising. This circular to the right here from Toys R Us is one that just ran a few weeks ago, and it really celebrating Jeffrey's birthday. And the books I have a front page spot on this circular, and it's a buy two get one free. One of the questions I often get is social media. Are we really working in our social media? And in essence, it's still pretty early on. For young adult, yes, I'm seeing more and more of that, but not so much with kids' books yet, other than some of the brand tie-ins. So if you have Fisher-Price being talked about on Facebook on a certain retailer's Facebook ad spot, it will link to book product there. One thing that retailers like is they like feeling special. So as we looked, and I think I had 20 different or 15 different retailers on that page, each one wants to feel special. And that's often very difficult. We do have one program in particular, though, that is working quite well to make this retailer feel special, and that's at Toys R Us. What this is they have actually autographed books. So we've taken some of the most well-known storybooks, and in essence, with the author approval, they've actually autographed these books. So it's kind of a unique program, and it's one that retailers love because it makes them feel very special and very different because they can sell against their competition with it. Real quick, and I know I'm running out of time, Jeff, but how much time do I have left?
Next 5-10 minutes, you're okay. Everyone's different schools are changing at different times, so just go with what you got because it'll all be archived anyhow.
Okay, great, because I want to make sure I answer some of those questions because I can't see those on this screen. As I look forward, some of the trends and concerns for the future is really, in essence, that planogram space I talked about is continuously being challenged. I know there is a grocer in the Northeast that we actually lost planogram space to cupcakes because, in essence, the retailer came and said, you know what, we can make a better margin on cupcakes than we can books. We need you guys to cut your planogram space by 4 feet. So that's always a challenge. You're always competitive with all the products in the store. So that to me is always the thing to keep in mind as I go out and I'm walking in these stores, is really looking at, in essence, all the competition beyond just what my competition is in books. It's everywhere in that store. The other thing we're always looking at and concerned about is a clean aisle. Oftentimes you'll get some new management at a retailer, and they'll, in essence, want, no more half pallets, as we pictured earlier in the presentation, or they don't want corrugate on the floor, or things like that. And promotionally, promotions are very, very, very good in terms of the revenue they generate. So for us, but a lot of times they would rather their shoppers enjoy a clean shopping environment. So the retailer's willing to take the hit on some of the revenue because they view that they'll make it up in terms of a cleaner shopping store will make them a repeat customer. Other thing to consider as we look is open to buy dollars. When you look at book departments, the buyer of that book department, in essence, is responsible for their budget in that department. So they have a certain amount of dollars dedicated in that department that they can have in total inventory of books in that department. So that's often challenge. The best thing for a buyer is they want to sell more with less inventory. That they like more turns and less investment in inventory. So that's often something we often look at. Ebooks is another question I often get with kids. I mean, I often tell people, the Leapfrog LeapPad's been around for 10 plus years. And then you have the VTech machine. I know Toys R Us has a new machine. The iPad, the Kindles. The nice thing for me, at least, is the ebooks have not been affecting the kids' books as much as they've affected the adult and young adult books. In essence, as you think about it with a kid, you don't want, your toddler can't develop motor skills and off, the iPad in terms of you don't have a touch and feel element to it yet. So that's kind of the ebook thing. The other nice thing is most of the buyers and the retailers they're very strong advocates for our book category in their store, so that helps us, and we use that as much as we can. And the other thing is, in the publishing industry, the biggest challenge is continue to be nimble or quick and continue to try to create innovative promotions. That's often a challenge, but something that we've been working on. Now I'm going to try to answer some questions here, Jeff. So I switched back.
Yeah, you can, or I can just go ahead and switch back, and while you are, I'll relay a couple of them to you.
Okay.
Deb asked about who creates the actual planogram, and is that part of your job? Is it a separate job, and is there a certain type of education necessary, or is it kind of learn as you go?
As far as who creates it, really it's in essence for my customers, which are the ones we just talked about, is in essence the buyer works with the distributor, and they work together in selecting the product, and then the distributor actually has the software that actually develops that particular planogram or that space. So oftentimes what will happen is a retailer will say, I have 4 feet of space. How do we maximize that 4 feet of space? And in essence, that software will go ahead and grab that 4 feet of space and develop a suggested list of titles that they think will sell best.
With your line of books, what's a good target for sales? I guess you go sales per square foot, I'm guessing.
Yes.
What's a target for that for the children's books?
Actually, it all depends. I mean, if you're in grocery, it's a little bit different than like a Toys R Us. In grocery, they have dedicated space. Not that it's not competitive, but they realize that the turns are going to be lower, in essence, off their rack than at like a Toys R Us or a Fred Meyer or something like that, where they're looking at that 4 feet of space across 1 year. They want it to generate $2 million. So that number always comes to my head when you look at that 4 feet of space in the average store. In a mass retailer, they want at least $2 million worth of sales generated through that across the year in that particular store. So it's very significant. Let's see here.
Is it strictly a matter of how your sales per square foot goes based upon, in terms of trying to get? I'm guessing you're no different than a Coca-Cola or Pepsi guy. You want more space. So do they make that judgment primarily based upon how well your sales are specifically, or are there some other concerns?
Definitely all sales. It's really driven by purely that, and oftentimes we have the toy department coming in saying, we could actually put an end cap up of the newest hottest toy, and that'll generate more dollars. So we're always challenged, and we're always challenged to come to the table and really fight back, but in essence have our own creative ideas that we can actually develop something that will work as good as toys, if not better.
Okay, well, Randy, time I'm sure is running out on your end as well. I want to just take a moment to thank you for spending time with us today on just our second episode of Face-to-Face, as we try to bring in some of the experts from marketing, management, entrepreneurship, leadership. We have quite a schedule lined up, and you've done us well here, and I think exposing a lot of teachers and students both to an industry that we're involved with on a daily basis as a consumer, perhaps, but don't know a lot about what happens behind the scenes.
Great. Thank you. And if anyone has any questions, be sure to follow up.
All right. Yes, I'll make sure we post some contact information as well as your slide deck, and the whole presentation will be archived. So thanks again. Good luck, and have a good rest of your day, Randy.
You too. Thank you. Take care.